I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
Just found all the classified stuff downstairs. Some of this may be classified, so be careful with it.
Okay.
No, all this classified material Joe Biden has, it just confirms this is a presidency built on lies, which is why Joe Biden and his army of lawyers spent 28 months trying to prevent the release of almost 3 hours of audio recordings from 2017 of Joe Biden and the ghostwriter of his book, a judge ruling that the audio is in the public interest. It was released yesterday by the Justice Department. It proves, without a doubt, in my opinion, that Joe Biden broke the law, that he had classified material, and that he lied about it while he was president. Our next guest is the author of the book, The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. And he claims that the National Archives are actively deleting material from the Biden presidency because it proves criminal activity on the part of Joe Biden. It's also worth noting that Jack Smith, that guy, and the Biden DOJ ultimately tried and failed to put Donald Trump in prison forever for doing the same thing, allegedly retaining classified material. They charged Trump with 40 separate felonies, but Biden hasn't been charged with anything yet. Do you remember this?
You saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago. What did you think to yourself?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible.
The report lays out example after example of how the president did not willfully take classified documents. The report lays out how the president did not share classified documents with anyone.
Oh, does it? Okay. Mike McCormick is a former White House stenographer for President George W. Bush, President Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, I should say, and President Trump, meaning he was in the room witnessing many of these alleged criminal activity like a fly on the wall. Mike, it's good to have you. Let me just start with, do you think Joe Biden broke the law by retaining and sharing classified material as vice president?
Yeah, and that was one of the minor law-breaking acts that he did. Yes, he did. I listened to the recordings. There's several points where he starts talking about this discussions he had with generals Dunford and Austin, and then John Brennan was talking, and all of a sudden the tape goes blank. It's like they, aired over the top of what actually was said. Somebody went through and it didn't erase it because it's still playing, but they overdubbed it with blank airspace. So as someone who used to listen to Joe Biden, I listened to Joe Biden's speeches and his interviews by the hour when he was vice president. I recognize everything in his voice. It's him. That's how he speaks. I didn't hear him being decrepit. Like these recordings took place in 2016. I was working in the White House in 2016. Right. He was out campaigning for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I wouldn't say he was debilitated then, but he certainly was debilitated in 2019 when he started running for president and he was out on the campaign trail and he could not form a speech. He couldn't travel as well. And I was out in public in 2020 in the fall saying he's half the man he used to be, and that actually proved true.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Listen to this now. I've listened to all of this, and it's like you can hear moments where you're like, wait a second. This is 10 years ago. This is almost 4 years before he became president. He didn't sound great. He didn't sound like he sounded in 2008 when he and Obama burst onto the scene. Let me just ask you, what makes you think that the National Archives is deleting Biden-related material?
Well, I've written 2 books about Joe Biden, and to write those books, what I did was, since I traveled with Joe Biden, I traveled to Ukraine with Joe Biden 3 times. I went to China with Joe Biden. I went to Honduras with Joe Biden.
Wow.
So when I went there, in 2021, was given a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop. And what I was able to do to write my books, and I write a Substack. The Substack is Midnight and Laptop of Good and Evil. And what I do is I would go into the laptop, Hunter Biden laptop, and see the email traffic at a certain point in time. And then I would remember, well, that was when we were going to Ukraine, and they were doing business deals with Joe Biden in Ukraine. So that's when I started writing the books.
Right.
The documents that I used that were from the White House, transcripts of interviews, transcripts of press briefings done by his staff, are now missing. from the National Archives. There was the original ObamaWhiteHouse.gov website was supposed to be frozen in time as soon as that administration finished.
Right.
It was frozen in time for a while. About a year ago, they changed it when he started building that big library in Chicago. And I checked in with the librarian. I said, "Hey, look, there's something funny going on here." They said, "Oh, we had a glitch in the software. We
glitch? Yeah, a glitch. Like those voters in New
and then
Jersey, it was a
ago,
there are no computer glitches. I don't buy that for a second. All right, just in the interest of time, yeah, I don't buy it at all. That is very convenient. And by the way, Joe Biden, he didn't pardon himself. He could still be charged with retaining classified material, which is why I think his attorneys were fighting this for 28 months, not because he didn't sound great on the recordings. They don't want the big guy going down. Let me just tie this together. I want to talk about 2020. Don't forget, Joe Biden was no South Carolina primary, no COVID. Joe Biden is never going to be the nominee. But suddenly we've got this pandemic, all these temporary voting measures are put into place, and Joe Biden is allowed to campaign like this. Take a look.
I know that we'll come through this challenge stronger than ever, just as we have every crisis we ever faced in this nation. There's nothing Americans can't achieve when we do it together.
Here I am in my basement in a television studio. We've not done that before, so I'm trying to learn too.
How much do you think people like Tony Fauci and the pandemic helped get Joe Biden elected in 2020 and get 81 million votes out of nowhere?
The book behind me is basically, I traced what Joe Biden did, starting in China in 2011. He got up there and he told the Chinese, "You have too many old people." And they started putting together a virology program that we funded. There were two sessions of it. One was called Predict 1 and the second was called Predict 2. Tony Fauci became famous in 2014 because Ron Klain, who was Joe Biden's henchman, made him the Ebola czar. From 2014 on, they knew they could run a pandemic, get a bunch of money for it, and go around the world and look for these viruses. When Trump came in 2017, it completely freaked them out. They didn't know what to do. Tony Fauci, Ron Klain got together. They went to Georgetown days before Trump came in. Yeah. And that's when Fauci made that there's going to be a pandemic event in 5 years. That's where it was. They worked together from that point on to develop this pandemic.
People forget that before that 2020 election, and before COVID, the Trump economy was one of the best economies in the 250-year history of this country. What took it down? Tony Fauci and this virus that came from a lab, this man-made virus that killed millions of people. Mike McCormick, so much more to talk about. I look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.